Hi there, and so welcome in this webinar, which is called Surviving the Corona Crisis. Now, I feel for you guys in Australia because you have been through a lot. First of all, of course, with the drought, then with the bushfires, then the floodings, and now COVID-19. So we have to deal with this crisis, and it's in the subtitle it says it's emergence of a new normal. And I have been talking about the new normal for quite a while already. And now everywhere, every government is talking about the new normal, and the World Economic Forum as well. So basically, this webinar is the first one, an introduction to a series of another 5. So this is a small flavor to give to you, and then the next series will be a deep dive on each of these topics that you can see below me. Now, in this time of social distancing, it's not just social distancing for people, but social distancing in logos as well. And as I said, you have to navigate through this crisis successfully. Basically, that's what John Maxwell said, in order to face the challenges that are being presented to us and to survive in this new normal. Whenever I was speaking, and that was back in the days when I was still on stage, I was always talking about the new normal. And back then, and it only seems, well, it seems a long time ago, but it's only a very short time ago, to be honest. Whenever I did, it was to reflect the change that we had made from digital being a novelty to digital becoming the new norm. Now, should you be wondering whether you are old normal or new normal, take a good look on my left. Because if you know these two objects and know the relationship between them, then you're definitely old normal. And that's perfectly okay, because so am I. On the other hand, if you wonder what this weird icon of WhatsApp means, or if you think that the one below is a 3D printed version of the save icon of your application, then you must be new normal. Now, and just the other day, I had this wonderful example of old normal versus new normal as well. This is my daughter video calling with my dad. And as you can see, he didn't really have a clue what that meant. Now, if we go back just 1 year, last year, when leaders were asked to predict whether they saw significant industry disruption coming, 73% of them said yes. And you know, this percentage had already tripled from the year before. Now, this industry disruption was basically coming from these 3 things: from new technologies, new competition, and higher expectation with customers. And now these days, it's safe to say that the pandemic has caused another factor in this disruption era. In any life cycle of a company, which of course starts with a growth first, and then reaches its peak and then its decline, when you are innovating, you shouldn't wait for the decline to occur. In fact, you should be innovating while you're still growing, because if you do that, that's when you create this new trajectory for growth. And whenever I was speaking about that, leaders would say, sure, yes, we will do this eventually. And actually, they didn't really start changing at all. Now, why is that? Basically, because of one reason, and that's because we are very much resistant to change as human beings. There's a wonderful formula to change from Gleicher. You can find it on the internet. And it says that in order to overcome the resistance to change, the factor on the right-hand side, you have to overcome 3 things. And these are the compelling reason to change, the vision of a positive future state, and the first steps to take there. And all 3 are factors. So if one is missing, then you will not overcome this resistance. Now, the first one, as I said, is about compelling reason to change, or the burning platform. And leaders did not see the sense of urgency at that time. So it's now safe to say that we don't predict anymore whether we'll see disruption coming. Actually, we are observing it, all of us, as we are speaking this very moment. And whenever I talked about digital as the new norm and the cause of disruption, basically it felt like we all had to go through these 5 stages of grief. And those were described by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in her book On Death and Dying from 1969 already. And, you know, technology was and is changing the world, and you better accept and embrace it. And I, as a speaker, sometimes got anger as a response. But that was because I was the messenger, so to speak. These days, it's what everybody goes through as well. We clearly started by denying the impact of the virus. And then we moved through every single stage. First of all, we got angry for being locked up and for seeing our businesses go down the drain. Then a lot of us got depressed, and research has shown that there's serious mental health problems everywhere. It is under pressure. And then we moved to bargaining. First bargaining on, for example, how many people were allowed to attend events, but then it's now bargaining about what we can do when we reopen again. And then finally, it's about acceptance. And some of us have already reached this stage, but most still have a long way to go. So if I go back to this graph of this life cycle of a company, it is definitely the case that we must innovate and we must do it now. We need to deal with this new situation. So before, I was always going to say in the old days, but that's in fact just 3 months ago, I would talk about 3 levels of innovation that have to take place at the same time. It's about innovating in the now, so improving the now, creating the next, and imagining the beyond. But these days, of course, it is much more about dealing with the unanticipated business challenges of survival, recovery, and rebound. And I do think economic recovery will take the form of this U-shape instead of a V-shape where you have this sharp dip followed by a sharp rise. I think we will be going through a longer recession followed by a gradual recovery. And so, of course, strategy planning and market engagement will be different in each of these eras. Now, what has the crisis brought about? So first of all, of course, it's about economic hibernation. This is currently being compensated for by governments because the shock is still being regarded as temporary. However, I think world economy will continue to suffer for quite a while. Some say that globalization was already heading in reverse. For sure, I think it will be reinforced by the coronavirus. Businesses will have to rethink their supply chains. So from these long and complex ones and global ones to simple and local or domestic ones. And then we see truth and trust really being the casualties of this war, so to speak. Because first of all, because of the initial cover-up that we saw of the outbreak. Secondly, because we have unprecedented misinformation here. We have a lot of malign people and so-called experts on the social media telling stories that are, well, some of them aren't true at all. And then finally, all these conspiracy theories are also contributing to this fact. And I think building and rebuilding trust is a big task for governments right now. But at the same time, for organizations, your customers want you to be trustworthy as well. And then finally, of course, we have seen a complete shift to remote work, and we won't see this go away. The myth that some jobs could possibly be carried out remotely proved not to be true. Video conferencing has been kind of forced upon us, but because these tools are so easy and intuitive, it may stick for a long while around. And you can basically in the future work for any company that you want, and co-location might not even be necessary anymore. Now, things that would have taken a year have now come about in just a few weeks in this new normal. And so the question here is, do you bend or break? So basically, resilience will be at the forefront of every strategy. Yet at the same time, it is agility that will ensure competitiveness and an ability to respond to the unexpected. You need to constantly adapt to changes these times. And first and foremost, you need to constantly adapt to the changes in your customers' needs and your customers' behavior. Now, I talked about the fact that digital had become the new norm. And we have gone, as humans, we have gone through a number of digital ages already. And just a few months ago, I would say that we are in the augmented age with AI at its core. And I would say that we are on the cusp of entering the age of well-being. But I think now, these days, this has truly been accelerated by the pandemic. And it is safe to say now that we have entered this age of well-being at lightning speed. Now, what is this age of well-being? First of all, it's about physical well-being, of course. But secondly, also about mental well-being. And I alluded to this earlier. Research has shown that this is suffering right now. Then it's also about social well-being, and that is making sure that everybody is included. And then financial well-being is very important as well. And again, this is about inclusion. It's not just for me, but for everybody. And so that's how you see, well, you saw in the past these initiatives around universal basic income and microlending, for example. And then finally, of course, it's also about the well-being of the environment. Now, because we have gone through all these digital eras, we as humans have a completely different behavior than we used to have before. And so that's why I like to call out the 5I model. So there's 5 characteristics, 5 customer characteristics that you need to take into account as businesses. And so these 5 I's of the new human are these. And of course, in the customer centricity session, I will be deep diving on those. I just want to make sure that you understand that these 5 are now very prominent as well in this time of crisis. So first of all, informed. Of course, we are constantly following all the updates in the news. We've also become much more individualistic. We have literally been thrown back to ourselves. There's this realization how you and your loved ones are the most important. We've become very much impatient for the lockdown to be lifted and impatient for all of this being over and restored to some kind of normal. And then we've become much more intuitive or emotional. So it's basically letting our intuitive brain take over versus our rational brain. We let our emotions speak more versus our ratio these days. And then finally, last but not least, it's about influence. In some countries, social media are the only means of communication with the outside world. So we have all moved online, have plenty of time to be influenced out there. And if you take these 5 aspects, you can turn them into aspects to do for a good customer experience. So for good sex. And if you take a look at them, each and every one of them in this slide, you can see that for every characteristic, there's things to do in the customer experience space. Again, I will be deep diving into this in the next session. But it is crucial that you keep investing into CX in these times of crisis. It is the moment to bring value to your customers. Maybe not for extra revenue, but certainly for limiting its decline. Now, relentlessly cut what doesn't matter to customer is crucial. Take a walk in their shoes to understand what's important. Remember that simplifying the lives of your customers will simplify your organization as well, allowing you to cut internal efficiencies and redundant processes. But if you do it wrong in these times of crisis, realize that we as customers can make or break a brand. And so this is an example from Australia, from Kmart Australia. As soon as lockdown was being imposed, they of course had to move online. And what they did was create a queue on their website. Now, whilst doing so, they chased a lot of their customers away, and in the worst case, even permanently, of course. And then whenever I talk about CX, people always ask me, will it pay? Does it pay to invest in the customer experience? And especially for this webinar, I took this old graph from Forrester. It's from 10 years ago, from our last recession. And it shows that if you focus on the customer experience, the shareholder value will be 3 times higher compared to the laggards. So it definitely does pay to do so. Now, I was talking about the changed human and the changed customers, and companies need to consider this changed human. In these difficult times, new and interesting things will emerge. And roughly, I think they can be categorized into two things. On the one hand, your brand, and on the other hand, innovation. Every company needs to make choices to deal with this time, with this crisis in the best possible way. And so if we look at brand at first, it's about these three things. It's about building awareness, it's about purpose marketing, and it's about creating trust by using the right messages. And all of this to aim for what I would call the positive sum game. Now, what is this positive sum game? It's kind of the reverse from the zero sum game that maybe some of you still know. In the zero sum game, you had to choose between better for me or better for the world. But in this age of well-being, companies now have to accomplish a positive sum game where both do not exclude one another. So customers want brands to offer them something that's not just functional or emotional. They expect something that helps them become, so to speak, a better version of themselves, or that helps to create a better version of the world. And from a business perspective, it's no longer just about shareholder value. It's about striving for a positive impact for the entire ecosystem and creating shareholder value at the same time. So aiming for this better world by focusing on these 17 goals that were determined by UNICEF. Now, how do we do this? So first one is about continued awareness. Quite a few brands are actually turning off the marketing tab these days under the motto of what doesn't come in can't be spent. But I think it is the time to let people get acquainted with your brand and the products and services you offer, since they are interacting with their screen more than with anything else these days. Now that means building awareness, even in times where people are more critical of their spendings, because they will spend again. And once this is over, it will be crucial for them to know that they can find what they're looking for with your brand. So keep building your brand to hold and even strengthen your position. And I love this story of the British food scale-up called Emily Crisps. They aim to provide what they call the health-conscious consumer with guilt-free snacking. Now, they bought some outdoor space to have their first outdoor ad campaign back in December. And they were envisioning April 2020 as the perfect moment to launch their campaign on a vibrant, sunny Easter day where people would be strolling the parks, they would be going to the barbecue, and they would, of course, eat lots of crisps. But then, of course, it turned out quite differently. And when the marketing team realized the campaign would not be seen by many people because of the corona crisis and social distancing, they decided to revamp the posters in less than a week. And now the new posters have created more impact than the original ones would have. And adding the touch of humor there proved crucial. And I think this is a great example of agility and of dealing with this new situation, as Emily Crisp have done. Next, it's about purpose marketing. Now, your brand is not just a logo. It is about the purpose of your company, what connects you to your customer. And it needs to be sincere and heartfelt, not just some marketing blah blah. This may be a time to redefine your purpose, to reconnect to your values. It's what makes you unique. So I think you should give this ample thought and communicate about it strongly. Now, internally, a clear purpose, of course, serves as a compass to navigate towards a goal in the beyond. It helps you and your employees to make decisions and understand decisions that are being made. And at the same time, externally, it helps your potential customers or your existing customers to determine your contribution to the positive sum game. And then next, it's about creating trust with the right messaging. So communication is crucial. Always avoid that people would get the impression, of course, that you're trying to capitalize on this tragedy. The tone and manner of communication has changed to address customers and give messages of support and sympathy first. Show that you care. So no more blatant and screaming marketing. Now, a couple of tips here. First of all, stick to your values. Be authentic. Don't rush into things that don't match with your brand. Secondly, think about the right words to say. It doesn't always have to be lots of text. So the Dutch government had a campaign that's called Only Together. Just 2 words to make sure that people understand that only together will we conquer this new situation. Thirdly, it's about showing your humanity with an authentic and sensitive response. And I love this example of AAMI Insurance in Australia, who are offering free roadside assist to everybody in the front line in the fight against COVID-19. So that's doctors, nurses, hospital staff, paramedics, firefighters, all kinds of volunteers. And they do this for free until the end of this year. And they do this for their customers, but also for their non-customers. And even if they live back into what you guys call whoop whoop. Next, for example, Walgreens and CVS in the US are waiving delivery fees for prescriptive medicine. And maybe a big platform known to you is Headspace, which is a mindfulness and meditation platform. They've now offered free access to customers as well. And Talkspace is another platform that offers a stress anxiety management program for free as well. But it's also local businesses that are stepping up. So, for example, where I live, local restaurants are now preparing meals for the elderly for free and delivering it for free to them as well. And of course, there's lots of local retailers now that will deliver for free if you're age 70 plus, for example. And then it's also about inspiring others by showing how you help. Demonstrate your corporate citizenship and inspire them to do exactly the same thing. And then finally, it's about reviewing all your planned communications. And this is what some companies have failed to do, identify those that need to be paused for a while because they may come along or come over as being insensitive or inappropriate. And then it's about making an experience a pleasant one. So add some humor there as well, especially in these times, it really augments the experience. And I truly love an initiative by Sweet Farm, a sanctuary that in return for a donation allows you to add a goat or llama to your Zoom meeting, or even get a virtual tour for everyone in the call. And they are being sponsored by GoToMeeting. I just love this initiative. So that was about brands. Now, of course, besides your brand, it's also about innovation. And innovation has to do with product and service innovation. Now, in this new normal, you will require innovation for a quick recovery and rebound. You will need to adapt as a company. And I think it's going to be crucial to ask yourselves 2 major questions. The first one is, what are we good at? And so it's about breaking down the patterns to really get to your core. We always like to see patterns as human beings to understand our world, even if they're not there. So it's about breaking these down, these patterns, these structures, and come to the core. Then the next question, of course, is what do your customers or your potential customers truly need? And it's a good idea to involve them, of course, in finding out. And then, of course, if you have these 2 questions answered, it's about finding the common denominator here that is crucial. And so there's a nice example of a Dutch company called Rapid Circle. They are an IT company, basically great at building apps using the Microsoft's Power Apps platform. And their core is building these apps really, really fast. So what they thought is they offer potential customers a free intake call. And if they could build what the customer needs within 8 hours, they would do that for free. Now, talking about corporate citizenship. And so they created these apps for example, healthcare organizations around bed inventory or arranging video calls with patients' family. And so basically what is talked about here is innovating with what's there already. And I think one of the benefits of the crisis is that entrepreneurs are really seizing opportunities by seeing gaps in their products. And there will be more innovation sprouting from that. Now, what we see in innovation in technology is this acceleration in new ways of generating and delivering content. And they stretch from health and fitness into cultural and entertainment, but also in education and business. And of course, it's not just about new content platforms alone. We will have new platforms altogether, so we can have what's called beyond local access to, for example, medical experts or teachers. And in this way, you can up the quality while at the same time lower the cost. So for example, in an educational platform, you can now afford a great professor who would otherwise cost you too much money if you had only a classroom of 50 students. But if you have 1,000 plus online, you may be able to afford it in this situation. And then another thing is contactless interactions. They will impact supply and delivery for sure. They will help companies become more resilient as they are less dependent on human if they have contactless interactions. But it will also drive greater efficiencies in a variety of life-related interactions, such as, for example, remote work and telehealth. For example, I've been talking to my physical therapist, and he now does video calls with his patients to show them how to do certain exercises. Medical doctors from hospitals who are not into the corona department do have these video calls with their patients now. And I know that just 3 months ago, they would claim that it would never be possible, but they are doing it right now. And I think this is going to be staying around for a while. And then, of course, it is the time to perfect the technology aspect within your organization. Technologies that are already there should be adapted, like big data, AI, robotics, IoT, AR, and VR. You need to make sure you strengthen your customer insights capabilities, not just based on the operational or transactional data or even simple demographics, but instead on the experiential data that tells you why people behave the way they do. And at the same time, it's about reskilling your employees. Now is the time to invest in automation and train employees in areas that have a direct correlation to customer experience, be it analytics or predictions with AI, voice of the customer technologies, journey mapping, or customer sentiment analysis. But mind you, it's not about doing everything yourself completely. Open innovation and collaborative frameworks will be the body for corporates as they have been before for startups. So it's still about digital innovation that will still remain the heartbeat. But it is now that if you work together with these third parties that are truly flexible and that are at the forefront of tech, that you can have a chance to move forward as well. And then over this period, I think for the past 2 months, we have also seen this boundary blurring between online and offline activities. As traditional businesses go fully remote, some with success, some like Kmart less successfully, and digital natives like Amazon, for example, capture opportunities to engage with customers everywhere. Now we will have to move to a world where the offline merges with the online. And China has been taking the lead in this space. And I think we will move to that. And of course, I will deep dive into that in the China session. But what we see, for example, in the Western world already is, and I think this is a wonderful example, is the app called Hero. Now, the founder of Hero started this because he was frustrated with waiting on hold to a local store. And now he was focusing on creating an app that made shopping as easy as messaging a friend over SMS or WhatsApp. So what he actually did was, when you were online, you would actually text someone at a shop, so the local representative at the shop, and talk with him or her about new products that you wanted. And today, in more than 20 countries, including brands like Levi's and Adidas and Rag & Bone and Harvey Nichols, this Hero app connects customers via text and chat. And so with the organizations, that is. So exchanging all of these messages every single month, and there's millions of them, will make sure that the organization is still connected to its customer, so from online to offline. And they also have a possibility of video calling, as you can see here, and this has really accelerated because of the COVID-19 situation. So the availability was there a lot faster, and it got adopted very, very quickly. And equally to online merging with offline, we also will be moving from on-site to a merger with off-site. And again, that is OMO. By the way, this acronym OMO was first used by Dr. Kai-Fu Lee. He was the author of a very, very nice book called AI Superpowers, and I would strongly recommend that to you. And he was talking about the Homo sapiens. Now, in China, they have, as I said, made big strides on this merger, and I think we will be seeing the same. So from a work perspective, we will have remote work here to stay, and employees will probably want to have the opportunity of doing both. At the same time, though, there will be a great need for more organizational transparency on what people are working on and why, on the one hand, and how we are doing against our goals on the other. So I think we need a more clear communication to our people. And of course, all kinds of applications are becoming more important, like Asana and Teams, to work on tasks together. So in the future, it will be crucial to facilitate more coordination in collaboration. And then, of course, it's also about leadership. Again, it's another topic in the deep dives, but I wanted to share this with you. I think empathy is key in leadership. It's key with employees. They may be facing serious health conditions within their families or themselves, uncertainty about their jobs, and feelings of uneasiness because of the remote work that they have to do. But mind you, empathy is not just a feeling of compassion or showing understanding, putting your arms around someone's shoulder. I think it's more about empathy with, so to speak, rolled up sleeves, where leaders stand beside their employees and work together. So instead of asking, what can I do for you? It needs to be about what can we do together to achieve what is necessary. And the core tasks here for leaders will be around motivating, inspiring, and supporting your employees. Basically, these three things will be crucial there. It's about being transparent, because if you are transparent on everything you do, you will be creating trust. It's about empowering your employees at the same time, allowing them to take their own responsibility and trusting them with the tasks that they need to fulfill, that they will do so. And then it's also about giving them some space. Create space for your workers, not just physical space, but also head space, to make sure that they can still be creative these times. And of course, at the same time, it's also about dealing with the fact that some employees will have a different pace. So you need to take that into account as well. Now, what would be the strategy for this new normal? Well, one thing is very sure. This crisis means continuous change. So we will not be going back to normal when this is over. It is not about creating temporary solutions. The solutions that you see now will be a great addition or even a replacement of your business model or parts of your business model. And one thing that's hard for all of us, but that is truly necessary, is that you need to unlearn a lot of what you learned. You need to be willing to let go of your darlings. Actually, you must. You can't keep on doing everything the way you used to. And then it's also about making this move from the fixed mindset to the growth mindset. Oh, mind you, I need to keep social distancing here. Okay, that's better. It's moving from avoiding challenges on the one hand to embracing them on the other. And I know that the book from Carol Dweck, Mindset, served as a guiding star to, for example, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. And he redeveloped Microsoft's culture from know-it-alls to learn-it-alls. And I think this is going to be very important going forward. So it's not about thinking in boundaries or limits. It's again about thinking and daring to think in opportunities. I think this is going to be very crucial going forward. Now, there's two statements that I like to end with. First of all, because of the coronavirus, I think we have lost, what we had lost, has come back. With this virus, the virus of humanity, of compassion, of care and empathy has also spread anew. And I hope we can hold on to this. And then secondly, digital innovation will once again fuel new strategies and initiatives to ensure long-term success and to be of benefit to society and the health of employees, of customers, and of the economy at large. And if you are wondering what your future will look like and you want to predict your future, I suggest take this quote from Peter Drucker, who said, "The best way to predict your future is to create it yourself." And with that, of course, I'd like to thank you for listening to this first introductory webinar. And as I said, we will have another series of 5 deep dives on different subjects that you can find below here. Thank you so much.